It's way more about quality than it is about quantity. Elements of authorship are super important to the end user who's reading that. There's a big question right now about rendering when it comes to the LLMs and how they do that. I think the LLMs are going to be far more free. But backlinks, for better or worse, they still are a part of how rankings happen, and they still work. This stuff isn't artificial intelligence. These are large language models, and it's good, I think, to keep that in mind because there are limitations to large language models that aren't what we would expect from, say, artificial intelligence.
Seth Trammell, welcome to eCoffee with Experts, man. It's good to have you.
Hey, yeah, thank you for having me.
So congrats on your new role at KlientBoost, a performance marketing agency. With your background in SEO, this is going to be an exciting journey for you, being in a management role and in a leadership role. Before we get into how you approach management, how you approach your team with SEO, what's the elephant in the room right now, man? What's everybody talking about or not talking about, therefore?
Well, I mean, you can't have any kind of conversations these days about SEO without some kind of talk about like what's going on with LLMs, with AI. The terms that get thrown around for like how, what we're going to call optimization, this GEO, LLMO, whatever. I've seen polls out there about what to call it, and nobody's landed on anything. And it just, I'm sticking more with the LLM side of things. I kind of try to go, I'm a little bit of a hardliner there where I'm like, this stuff isn't artificial intelligence. These are large language models, and it's good, I think, to keep that in mind because there are limitations to large language models that aren't what we would expect from, say, artificial intelligence. They're putting together probability-based sentences using the words that they've scraped from all of our content we've worked so hard to produce over the years. And so it's, either way, that's a bit of my dogma when it comes to this. But I think, keeping it in perspective with the LLMs, that's the elephant in the room. Like every conversation we're having has some flavor of that, whether it's taking traffic away through far more no-click interfaces. Appearing on both, Google standard search and then the AI mode kind of stuff, and then using the models themselves, ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude, all these things where they are answering questions and not necessarily providing clickable or, even worthwhile links to the content that they've taken it from. Or when they're, mentioning you as a brand, not necessarily giving that direct link back to you, just saying your name.
So, I mean, in this space, traditional SEO, in your mind, like when you think of traditional SEO, like what do you think of?
I've always looked at it, the three kind of pillars. There's content marketing, there is the on-page technical side of things, and there's the off-site backlink acquisition, and a little bit of like, now I would incorporate like reputation management as well as kind of like some PR stuff, especially because I think like affiliate stuff, paid placements, those are being weighted extremely heavily, I think, by the models. They don't care if the link is marked no follow or sponsored. It's simply, were you recommended by a prominent publication? We actually don't care if you paid to be recommended. Which is a very weird space that we're living in. And I think it's something that's probably due to change eventually. But I also don't know if there's necessarily right now any kind of big impetus or big need from the model side of things, from the AI side of things, for them to do anything about it. So those are the three kind of cores that I look at. And I think each one, the relevancy to the current conversation it's similar, but it's also evolved over the last couple of years. What we emphasize, I think, maybe is now a little bit different than maybe what it had been in the past. From the content side, the notions of like velocity, content velocity, or just like how much can you produce has, gone in and out of favor quite a lot. But I think now more than ever, it's way more about quality than it is about quantity. And there's a lot of people out there still pushing quantity that will, spin up these websites, spin up, 150, 200, 300 pieces of content all at once, get it out there, it ranks for a little bit, and then, you check back a few weeks later and it's all gone. Which is, we just don't have the luxury to try and do that kind of stuff or try it out. And honestly, I just don't have the belief that stuff is long-term viable. It's very clear, where Google stands on what kind of signals they want you to show. And I think too, from a user perspective, the internet has been flooded with so many blog articles that are, pulling from the other articles, not adding anything to the conversation. And then, you get there and it's like written by website team. It's like, okay, you've given me no reason to trust this. And so I think, elements of authorship are super important to the end user who's reading that. I know for my own perspective, if I see an author and I see their credentials within that post, I'm far more likely to stay there and read.
Yeah.
And those engagement signals we through the various court documents and leaks we all know now, those are a part of what factors into rankings. Yeah, the evolution there is kind of finally, I think, complete in that no matter what you're doing, whether it's your money, your life stuff or not, showing that you have some level of expertise is going to be key.
Yeah. You said like the quality over quantity. Did you get a chance to like look through Google's spam update that came out, I don't know, 2 weeks ago or something like that?
I saw some of like what was being reported,
Mm-hmm.
some of the people out there who had, people reaching out showing, big impacts from it. It's always kind of interesting just because it's like, well, a lot of them, in most cases, they did kind of deserve it.
Right. Yeah.
If you were doing that and you saw, if you were, producing just masses of, AI content just to fill the space, just to fill the void, and then you saw it go away, well, I don't know what else you kind of expected.
Right.
Because it's always this game of cat and mouse with Google, where I've heard the phrase thrown around a lot that, SEOs ruin everything. And I always say that kind of jokingly because, it's true. It's finding something that you can take advantage of and then using it to excess to, in ways, game the system and create advantages. And then, well, yeah, then of course Google catches up, realizes that's what you're doing, and then away that advantage goes.
Yeah.
And it's so funny how like now with like AI, how like some of the really old tactics are still viable, like white text on a white background. Who'd have thought that worked? The notion of like the strategic text sequence. So like there's like a Harvard paper out about like if you, specifically insert these text sequences that the models are using into your, content, you can, show up more often. It's like, I get that, but that might be, maybe it's working now, but that's maybe a little bit gaming the system. And I think eventually, I hope it doesn't work eventually.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't help the end user. And I think that's where kind of like the best SEO always comes from is when you want to go out there and you want to satisfy the model, but you actually need to make sure that you're satisfying your end user. And that's the core to long-term sustainable success is when you are building from that user-first model, bound to have long-term success, even if it's not, meteoric, where you've got, the hockey stick style charts that show it. If it's gradual and then you're getting those meaningful users, you end up winning at the long.
There was someone that said, success isn't complicated. It just takes a long time. Like the people who are winning, the companies who are winning are just the ones who have been around the longest. I mean, you see it so many times. You get the hockey stick because of tactics and then they fall because of lack of principle. I think that's the difference. Like if you're trying to cheat the system, basically what I got from the spam update from Google is like, if you try and trick us, we're going to figure it out and we're going to make you pay for it, basically.
Yeah. Thank you for alerting us to the trick that you're doing. Yeah. And we've now shut that down.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's what they were saying with AI generated content, with like masking pages. I think it's what it's called. I'm not super familiar, but they even said, we understand that buying and selling links is a normal part of the online economy. And we would just prefer that if you are doing that you have the correct tags, like no follow or sponsored, or now UGC is even becoming more and more popular. I mean, what are your thoughts on brands like getting user generated content? Is that a part of your strategy, or how do you think about that?
So I get a lot of questions specifically about Reddit and how to optimize for Reddit. And I've been a Redditor for about 10 years, a lurker, almost exclusively. Not really somebody who engages a lot, but there for the content. And as such, I view it as like, yes, it's a social media platform. And yes, it is getting utilized a lot, but it is not a place where you can go and market kind of effectively.
Yeah.
It is very, I call it astroturf resistant.
Yeah.
The user bases inside. Yeah, you will. Like the user bases inside these subreddits are typically diehards in a lot of cases. And they, they will sniff out. They will go and look at your post history. They will go and see if you've been, saying the same things in a lot of different places, and they will call you out. And the way that the models are kind of surfacing comments, it's also, I feel like it's very difficult to go and like create a bunch of like Reddit content right now and hope that it will get surfaced. It's looking at like post age and the amount of upvotes. And it's kind of hard to get a bunch of upvotes when you're out there not being genuine.
Yeah.
because
100%.
again, the community sniffs it out. So what I recommend brands do is to treat it like kind of like a reputation management thing, like you would with like responding to like reviews on Google. Be
Mhm.
genuine. Like if people are having problems, use that as another place where you can go and try and help them solve their problems. And
Mhm.
if you're showing that kind of care to your customer, that actually reflects very well for you.
Yeah.
It's just any instances where you come in and let's say somebody had a problem with some part of your process and you kind of pass the buck, or you say like, actually, no, that's not like those ones. Always you get flamed for that. You get downvoted to hell, as they say. So it's just a matter of like, be genuine, be helpful, treat it like you're managing a reputation. Don't try and self-promote or post a bunch of positive stuff about you, or have people go post a bunch of positive stuff about you, because the ramifications of if you're found out and if that comes back to you, what that does for the trust is pretty damaging.
Yeah.
Especially as long as Reddit is going to be a big part of how rankings work. And I don't see any near end to that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like you said, these users are diehards. They're very protective of what the space is, which is authenticity. Yeah, I noticed that a lot too. Funny enough, I don't like to say this, but I will for the sake of the audience. I actually got banned from a subreddit. I won't say which one it is, but I asked a genuine question because I basically used a couple terms in there that the moderator didn't like and immediately banned me. And I was like, dude, like, look at the context of my question. It was literally asking genuinely for opinions. So, anyway,
Well,
what I'm
and
saying
that's
is
a
to
whole
just
other side
echo
of
your
the
point.
yeah, that's a whole other side of the Reddit coin when we talk about moderation. And I,
Mm,
had looked at things where like, I forget how many of the top subreddits were moderated by like 16 people. And we're talking like thousands of
yeah.
subreddits, and there's like 16 moderators controlling those. And that's,
Yeah.
and you have these auto mods that will ban based on that kind of stuff, no appeals. And so, yeah, within some of the bigger subreddits, that is an absolute problem for like,
Yeah.
who's controlling the discourse and what
Exactly.
are their incentives?
Mm
And so, yeah,
hmm.
that's
Mm
a
hmm.
whole other murky area. And yeah, so that's why, yeah, I stress kind of trepidation around trying to go too heavy into kind of a Reddit strategy, because it's a difficult space.
Yeah. You got to be real. Absolutely. So, I guess going back to the more SEO foundation side, with your new role, I would imagine that as someone who's coming in as a director of SEO, you're like, okay, this is how I perceive the landscape that I'm walking into. Here's my past experience. I know what works. I know what doesn't work. If I were starting an SEO agency in 2025 and I basically hired you as a consultant to say, Seth, come in here and help me build my program, like what are some of the foundational elements that you would help me implement that are still relevant today? Maybe even like a one, two, three kind of building blocks for SEO.
I think the number one most important thing you need to have in any kind of department is the people. The specialists are the experts, the strategists, whatever title they have. You need to have really good people in place. You could have the best notions and strategies and all of that, but if you don't have people who can iterate, who have good instincts, it just doesn't always work. And I say a lot that I feel that there's a lot of SEO that is instinctual. There are pattern recognition skills that you need to, because every website is different. Every website's needs are different. You're
Hmm.
really never going to encounter these kind of, cookie cutter places where this strategy that worked here is going to work exactly like it did over there. And so you have to
Hmm.
be able to see the landscape, see what's going on, know what tools you have in your toolkit, and then how to employ. And so like from a department level, yeah, you need to build out that toolkit, get everybody all the stuff they need, all the SOPs and things like that, to be able to go out and use those where necessary. But the core of it is having people who know which tools to use when, which tactics to employ when, and have that kind of the instincts to know, yeah, when I see this is what I need to go and do, or this is
Mm.
where I need to go and look further. And
It's
so,
it's
yeah,
the hunter, not the gun.
yeah, so much so. So yeah, it's the first thing you have to build with great people.
Mm.
You either, if you're building from scratch, then it's all about, you got to go out and hire. You got to go find those people.
Mm.
And I got very lucky. I inherited people who fit that bill, who are like, they're hungry, they're curious, they don't stop learning. our internal kind of Slack, it's a lot of, we're posting articles back and forth about, reading up on what's happening and what's new and all of that. And it's that level of engagement, I think, that's really necessary and really shows the type of person you're going to get. As if they have that, if they're curious and always learning, those to me have always been the best SEOs, the ones who just don't rest on their laurels and they know that there's something new I have to learn just about every day.
Yeah. And I love that you said that, human resources and the people that make the machine go round. Like the big news around AI is Meta's signing bonuses, for poaching OpenAI researchers and developers. But then you have the other side where you have Elon at XAI, where he's also attracting top talent without the ridiculous signing bonuses because there's more of a vision, a purpose, a meaning. So let's say I am able to attract the right people. They're smart enough, they're instinctual enough. What's step two for building out an SEO program internally?
I guess you have to find out what are your values. Who are you going to be? Who is your product going to work for? And then you have to have basically the foundations of what am I going to do to help my clients produce content, whether it's, am I going to, soup to nuts, do everything for them? Or am I going to assist only in cases where they have internal teams working on this? Or am I going to be able to do both? Then you have to have really good, like, on-page technical foundations. That side is I think one of the most important, even though it's the one that sometimes is the hardest to show that true, like, lift or value from. But it just cannot be overlooked in terms of, and I come from a very technical background. I was early on in my career asked to be like the technical guy, the go-to for the company. That meant I had to get out of my creative content marketing space and get into the very nitty-gritty world of technical. And that's where I've made my home for some years now, and seen the importance of, there's a handful of things that if you don't do them right, it can ruin everything. Having that lockdown is vital to promoting the success of any website you're going to work with. And then I think the final thing is you do need to have some kind of off-site strategy. These days, it's a little bit more than it ever used to be with, like we talked about, the paid side of things being, fully able to be incorporated for LLMs. But backlinks, for better or worse, they still are a part of how rankings happen and they still work. And yes, it is a marketplace out there. And so, there's a lot of places where you can go wrong. And one of the better updates that Google did, I think it was, I want to say almost 18 months ago, was a link spam update where they went and killed a bunch of sites that were, ranking highly, getting hundreds of thousands of monthly visits while they wrote about every topic under the sun. And just watching them go from 250,000 monthly visits to zero overnight. And then you looked at the website, like, oh yeah, I get it. It was kind of satisfying to be like, okay, cool. Like, these are being taken out of the ecosystem. That's great, because there's a lot of people who were buying that kind of stuff, and it was nice that Google kind of recognized that in a very clear way. I remember one in particular, a website that was literally like the backup drummer for Kiss, like his personal website, his name, and was writing about literally every topic you could ever think of, and was getting like 250 visitors every month, and just overnight gone. I'm like, yes, wow. There's no reason why, backup drummer for Kiss should be trusted on any of these topics.
Yeah. I'm just laughing because that's such a, like, what? That's so left field.
Right. Yeah. Never would have expected that was out there. And then, it was a backlink provider, somebody who built that website just to sell links.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Yeah. I mean, I probably, like you and probably like many of our audience in the SEO and agency space, get bombarded with people who, sell links. And most of the time it comes in the form of a spreadsheet. It's like, hey, here are 1,000 sites. Like, there's a bunch of different colors on the website with different fonts on it, and like, the cursive font in there. And I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, you copied and pasted from a MySpace profile. And just clicking on some of those sites, even though, they might have 50, 75, 100,000 traffic
They'll
on
show
them,
you the DA or the DR.
Yeah. And I'm like, this is complete. This looks like a digital billboard. This sucks. Like, I would never trust anything from this site, as opposed to, someone who actually does the work themselves, has high quality links, I think is what you're saying. Like, high quality links, in the quality is going to beat quantity every day of the week, like, in today's world. Yeah.
And while I don't think that like DR and DA, like those kinds of metrics have caught up to
Mm-hmm.
it in quite the way that Google has. But yeah, it's so much more than just those numbers when you're trying to look at like what is a good link placement, like going to the actual website, like you said, and looking at like, is this a place where I would want to live? Is this a place where I would
Yeah.
want to be recommended by? And if you get any kind of those those bad vibes, follow that instinct.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I mean, one way that we do this is we go to the Google search bar and we type site colon and then the website URL. And then in quotation marks, we will put the keywords that we want to, look for. And then under tools, I'm trying to visualize this, but under tools, if you click on tools, it'll say about how many times these keywords have been mentioned on this site. So it shows that Google is actually crawling the site. It's ranking it. So that's a way that you can easily check to make sure that, like, if you are getting backlink placements, that they're actually being,
Yeah, there's
properly
topical
shown.
relevance there.
Relevance, yes, that's what I was looking. Exactly. Yeah. What sort of? I mean, I know you're relatively new at your role at KlientBoost now, but I'm curious, what sort of, maybe tests are you looking to run, or what tests have you run in the recent past that gave you some sort of insight to where the industry is going or what's happening behind the scenes?
One of the things I'm most interested in at the moment in sort of doing some testing around is JSON-LD structured data. There are a lot of opinions on it right now and its relevance to not just Google search, but also what's happening with LLMs. Where I fall on this is that it is currently not supported, not always even crawled by any of the LLMs in kind of like any big way. But I have a firm belief that it will be because it makes logical sense that it is.
Can you share what that is? Like, what is JSON?
So JSON-LD is a structured data markup language that is kind of the core of, when you talk about schema or you talk about structured data at all, that is probably it is the most prominent and built out of the markup languages out there. There's it's like RFA and there's microdata, and those also are very valid, but like some years ago, Google came out in their documentation and said, we would really prefer it if you use JSON-LD. And a lot of the web played ball. And it's a very nice markup language that segments core concepts on your pages and kind of puts them in a very machine readable format.
Cool.
And there's a big question right now about rendering when it comes to the LLMs and how they do that. Like Google over the years, from the search perspective, has really upped their game when it comes to rendering sites. It used to be like JavaScript SEO and rendering based SEO used to be like a really hot topic because there was a real concern that if you weren't mindful of what you were doing in your JavaScript, your page might not even get seen because Google wouldn't take like it's extra time, extra resources to render pages. And if you're making them do that, you may get skipped. And that's kind of receded a little bit into, for me, at least from my perspective, as Google's just gotten better at rendering. But right now, it looks like a lot of the comments and data I've seen is that the LLMs don't render as much. They cache certain versions of the pages and they update the cache kind of frequently, but they oftentimes aren't seeing everything on the page. It's just too heavy resource wise to do that. And then there's obviously, I feel like there are some, ethical concerns as it relates to how much, water and all that gets used every time you put in a query. But they're also, from a financial perspective, understanding like how much energy it's costing them every time they have to do this. And, it wasn't that long ago we were being asked, don't thank them. Don't thank the chat bots. It's wasting lots of money. And so I think, it's only natural that they're going to try to find more effective, more efficient ways to get what they want. And for some years, JSON-LD structured data has been Google's way of politely asking for what they want. And they used to give you reward, or they still do in a lot of cases, of the rich snippet where, if you give us this data in the format that we like, that's very machine readable, we will then reward you on the SERP with an enhanced feature. So there were these types that, currently like the most prominent one, I think, is product structured data, where you can have like, the review stars and your shipping information and price and all that stuff there in your listing within the SERP. And that also feeds kind of to the Merchant Center feeds and the product blocks that show up and all of that. Then there were other ones like FAQ and how to. And what we saw is, Google would say, hey, FAQ, we'll give you a nice rich snippet if you give us if you break your FAQs down into this nice structured format. And then they said, well, okay, thank you for all that. We've now taken away that rich feature. And then we see that stuff now being surfaced in AI overviews and in other AI responses. And so it's like, okay, that to me is the model. if you give us the data in a very nice, structured, readable format that we don't have to work hard to get, then we will reward you by showing you. And that's the only reward you get these days is your information gets mentioned. And if you're lucky, your name. But the days of like you getting, a for sure link or, your placement being more prominent are, for better or, well, really worse, a little bit behind us. But that's where I'm looking at. When we go back to the original question, looking at testing is what types, what properties within, schema.org's structured data kind of library are going to be useful and are going to, as I think, the Google had their set of like, this is the ones that we respect. I think the LLMs are going to be far more free. And so it's like, all right, how well can I structure my data? And will that provide these LLMs with better information and then cause when they talk about me for it to be more accurate, more truthful, less hallucination, and less kind of crosstalk. And so that's kind of like a long-term investment is having great structured data to have that baseline of truthfulness that these models had to go get.
Would that require like a total recoding of a site? I mean, No.
This stuff is all additive. So like JSON-LD goes into the head tag should, doesn't have to, but should, into the head tag of a page. So that's why too, it gets picked up very quickly when it's in the head tag. And so it gets read before any kind of rendering has to happen. That's what makes it more efficient in a lot of ways is it's there first.
Nice.
Yeah, so it can be added to anything. And a lot of the, the popular CMS like, WordPress or Shopify, there's a lot of plugins to kind of automate that and work within those boundaries. But what I'm looking at more is going beyond the templates and into the very granular aspects of what's possible there. And I think too, there will be new properties added that are going to be specific to LLMs. Something that goes beyond kind of current, it goes in and out of popularity, but like this concept like a LLMs.txt, which sounds like a robots.txt, but really operates like a sitemap.xml. I see it get thrown around. I think it's an idea that makes sense, but from some perspectives, but then it's also kind of like this is something that is completely gameable. You're just trying to like spoon feed what you want to be shown up. So there's every reason for them to just ignore it because they realize what you're trying to do. And no platform has really, come out and said we fully adopt it, we fully crawl it. And I think a lot of the data I've seen shows that they don't ever crawl it. So at least for now, it's a proposed standard. I think it came out of a good place. And I think, going back to the SEOs ruin everything, I think it's very quickly getting gamified and maybe even overused when there's really nothing that says, yes, this absolutely is a part of what's going on and it absolutely works.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of holding my breath on that.
Yeah. Holy smokes. Time will tell, I guess. Like you said, the cat and the mouse, a tale as old as time and will continue ad infinitum. Yeah. Yeah. Well, awesome. Seth, as we wrap up here, where can people find more about you and learn more? I know you produce content on your own as well as for KlientBoost. Is LinkedIn the best place or tell us where to find you online?
For now, yes. LinkedIn's the best place. I don't think I'm still too new. I don't think I have a profile page up on the KlientBoost site yet. So but that's upcoming. And then I'm looking to start helping to build KlientBoost has a really good library of content already. And I'll be looking to use my own expertise and start to go in and add that to a lot of what we have existing. So that's everything is future for me. If you want things to keep an eye on, I'm currently nowhere. I might be somewhere in the future. Yeah, LinkedIn is probably the best place to get an idea of my background.
Well, by the time this podcast actually drops, like we might be in a different place and people would be like, what are you talking about? You're all over the place.
That would be too much if that was the case.
Well, Seth, thanks again, man. You are a really smart dude, and I love the technical expertise that you're bringing, as well as like a solid foundational, SEO experience. KlientBoost is lucky to have you, man. So thanks again.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and it's been an absolute pleasure talking with you. You're a fantastic host.
Cheers.